She walked in ready to draw blood, but Barack Obama refused to bleed. He sat still, smiled like a man who had already read the last page of the book, and when he finally opened his mouth, calm didn't just enter the room. It bought the building, and from that moment on, it never left. It started the way these things always start. Handshakes that lasted exactly the right amount of time. Smiles measured in millimeters. The usual dance of politeness that television requires before the knives come out. But underneath all that rehearsed warmth, something else was breathing. Something heavier, something waiting. And everyone in the room could feel it pressing against the walls. The stage was set like a painting. Soft golden light poured down from above, turning the polished desk into a mirror. On one side sat Barack Obama. On the other, Ivanka Trump. Between them, the moderator, a man known for stepping between storms without getting wet. The topic for the evening: leadership in modern America. 3 words, simple on paper, but in that room, on that night, with those two people sitting across from each other, those 3 words were a loaded weapon with the safety off. Obama looked exactly the way the world remembered him, spine straight but not stiff, hands resting easily in his lap, eyes that moved slowly, taking in everything while giving away nothing. He carried the kind of stillness that only comes from years of standing inside hurricanes without flinching. Ivanka arrived like a woman stepping onto a runway she had designed herself, every strand of hair in its designated place, her posture sculpted, deliberate. Her voice, when she spoke, was smooth as polished marble, warm on the surface, cool underneath. For her, this wasn't just a televised conversation. This was a defense of her name, of her father's presidency, of the legacy she refused to let anyone tarnish. The moderator opened with small talk. Obama laughed gently at a joke about how he seemed to age in reverse. Ivanka smiled, adding that her father always said the presidency kept him sharp, not tired. It was all pleasant, all expected, the kind of conversation that floats on the surface of still water while something enormous moves beneath it. But even in those first easy minutes, the tension was there. You could feel it in the pauses that lasted a half-second too long, in the way their eyes met and held, each measuring the other like boxers in the first round. There was history in that room, years of political war, 2 families that represented 2 completely different visions of what America was supposed to be, and neither had come here to lose. The moderator turned to Obama first. Mr. President, you've spoken many times about the role of character in leadership. What does that mean to you? Obama gave a small nod, letting a beat of silence pass before he spoke. I think character is what you do when nobody's watching, he said. It's how you treat the people who can't do anything for you in return. The audience responded with soft nods and light applause. Ivanka listened, her smile perfectly calibrated, warm enough to look respectful, cool enough to signal she was waiting for her turn to strike. The moderator pivoted. Miss Trump, you've often said your father taught you leadership through action. How would you describe his approach? Ivanka's smile widened. My father believes in results, she said proudly. He believes real leadership isn't about elegant speeches or perfect sentences. It's about taking bold steps, even when people don't understand you. The words landed squarely in Obama's territory. Everyone heard what she didn't say out loud, that Obama was the one who talked beautifully, while her father was the one who actually did things. Obama didn't react. His face remained perfectly still. The moderator leaned in. So you're saying leadership is about action, even if it means being misunderstood? Ivanka nodded sharply. Exactly. Some leaders spend more time talking about unity than actually building it. My father doesn't wait for everyone to agree before doing what he believes is right. A murmur passed through the audience. Ivanka had planted her flag right in Obama's front yard. Obama smiled politely. That's one way to look at it, he said softly. And then, nothing. He just let his silence fill the space her words had opened. Ivanka leaned back, crossing her legs, glancing at Obama with a smirk that carried 3 different meanings: confidence, amusement, and a dare. She was loading her next round. What do you think, Miss Trump? The moderator asked. Is the biggest difference between your father's leadership and President Obama's? Ivanka's smile turned into a blade. I think my father leads from the front. He doesn't hide behind words. Some people build legacies through speeches and memoirs. Others build them through action. The mood changed instantly. That wasn't just a political comparison. That was personal. The audience gasped softly. Obama didn't flinch. He tilted his head slightly, looking at her with calm curiosity. He said nothing, and Ivanka, misreading his stillness as hesitation, stepped further into the trap she couldn't yet see. It's easy to sound wise when you're not the one making the tough calls anymore, she continued. My father doesn't have that luxury. He doesn't get to just talk about hope. He has to deliver it. The audience went completely quiet. For a few long seconds, it looked like Ivanka had seized the moment entirely. Her face glowed with confidence. Obama remained perfectly still. Those seconds of silence felt like hours, but he didn't speak. Not yet. He simply smiled. A small, calm, knowing smile. The kind that says without words, "You think you've cornered me, but all you've done is hand me the keys." The moderator turned to Obama again. How do you respond to the idea that some leaders talk about change while others make it happen? Obama drew a slow breath. Change doesn't always look loud or dramatic, not when it's real. Sometimes it happens quietly, in classrooms, in hospitals, in small towns where no cameras are rolling. Leadership isn't just what you do for the people who agree with you. It's what you do for those who don't. Before the warmth could settle, Ivanka cut back in. With all due respect, that sounds nice. But people don't live on words. They live on results. My father built things, real things, businesses, jobs, opportunities. He didn't just inspire hope. He created it. Obama gave no reaction. Ivanka, reading his quiet as weakness, pushed deeper. You know, some people say leadership is about grace, but grace doesn't pay the bills. Maybe that's why so many people felt left behind during your time in office. You spoke beautifully, but where was the real change? The audience murmured. She was attacking his legacy, his connection to ordinary people. She was daring him to lose his composure. Obama stayed silent. For a breathless second, it almost looked like she had struck a nerve. Ivanka pressed harder. It's easy to look calm and wise when you're out of the spotlight. My father doesn't get that luxury. She turned toward the moderator with a proud smile that announced, "I've won this round." He didn't respond right away. He looked thoughtful, almost amused, like a professor who just watched a confident student write the wrong formula on the board. Ivanka noticed the silence stretching. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her face. The quiet was lasting too long. Her smile began to look less like confidence and more like a mask. Finally, he leaned forward. His voice came out low and even. "Ivanka, you mentioned results. You're right. Results matter. But what kind of results are we talking about? A leader can build towers, open offices, generate profits, but if those results only serve a few people at the top, is that leadership? Or is that just self-interest wearing a nice suit?" Ivanka opened her mouth, but Obama continued. "You said your father built things. That's true. But real leadership isn't about building things for yourself. It's about building trust. And trust is the one thing money has never been able to buy." The audience clapped softly. Ivanka's smile wavered. She straightened up and replied, "With respect, Mr. President, maybe people are tired of moral lectures. They want action. My father acts. That's why people love him." Obama smiled faintly. "And that's why they fear him too," he said softly. That single sentence rearranged the air in the room. Ivanka blinked. Obama didn't sound angry. He sounded factual. Ivanka tried to laugh it off, but the laugh came out thin. "I wouldn't say fear, I'd say respect." Obama nodded slowly. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. When power becomes the only goal, the energy tilted toward him. Ivanka opened her mouth and found nothing there. Obama didn't press the advantage. He spoke quietly. "I understand loyalty. I respect family. But when your loyalty stops you from telling the truth, even to your own people, that's not strength. That's surrender." The room fell into a silence so deep you could hear the electricity in the lights. Ivanka's earlier jabs now seemed small, thin, like paper thrown against stone. Obama didn't gloat. He simply looked at her with calm empathy, as if he wanted her to understand rather than feel humiliated. But the crack in her composure was visible now. The storm she had started was turning back toward her. The moderator stepped in. "Let's bring this back to leadership. Can family influence how a leader makes decisions?" Ivanka seized the lifeline. "Of course, family shapes leadership. My father is the perfect example. Everything he does is for his family and for the country. He's guided by loyalty. That's what makes him strong," she continued. "He doesn't separate the personal from the political. His family is his foundation, his motivation." Obama looked down for a moment, like a man considering whether to open a door he knows can't be closed again. When he looked up, something different sat in his eyes. "Family is important," he said softly. "It shapes who we are." Ivanka smiled slightly. Exactly. Family gives purpose to everything we do. What came next changed the temperature of the entire room. Obama leaned in and asked, almost casually, "Barron is your son?" It wasn't loud. It wasn't harsh. It was quiet, conversational, almost gentle, but it landed with the impact of a boulder dropped into perfectly still water. The shockwave spread through every row of seats, every face, every pair of lungs that suddenly forgot how to breathe. Ivanka's smile froze. The audience went absolutely still. The air compressed until it felt solid. Ivanka blinked. Then she let out a soft, awkward laugh. "Excuse me?" Her voice had climbed half a note higher. Obama didn't repeat the question. He just looked at her. Calm, patient, unreadable. She recovered quickly. "No," she said, the smile thinner now. "Barron is my brother. I think everyone knows that." Obama nodded slightly. "Of course, it's just, you speak about family as though it's a single shield that covers everyone around your father. I was only wondering where that shield stops." Ivanka tried to respond, but her voice caught. She tried again. "When you grow up in a family like mine, loyalty is everything. You don't separate who you are from who you love." Obama's smile deepened. "I can respect loyalty, but when loyalty starts to replace truth, it becomes something else entirely." Ivanka's face tightened. "I'm not sure what you're implying, Mr. President." "I'm not implying," Obama said. "Just observing. Your father once said something in an interview, something about how close he was to you. Many people found it unusual, but I'm sure he meant no harm." Ivanka's face turned to stone. Nothing came out. Obama's voice had stayed perfectly respectful, but the meaning underneath was clear as sunlight through clean glass. He was illuminating the uncomfortable space between pride and denial, the shadow that had followed her family for years. She forced another laugh. "I don't think that's relevant here. We're here to talk about leadership, not personal jokes taken out of context." Obama nodded. "Of course. But isn't it interesting how the personal and the political always find their way back to each other, especially when we insist they shouldn't?" That line left Ivanka no room to breathe. She had built her entire argument on family pride, and Obama had just turned that foundation into a question mark. Ivanka took a breath. "My father loves his family. That's not something I'll ever apologize for." "Love is never something to apologize for," Obama said softly. "But sometimes love makes people blind, and when that blindness affects an entire nation, it stops being love. It becomes something else." There it was, the sentence no one could unhear. Ivanka looked down briefly, then up again, composed but pale. She wanted to answer, but for the first time in her public life, nothing came. Obama sat back, saying nothing more. The question still lingered like a ghost. "Barron is your son?" Echoing with meaning far deeper than the words themselves. The silence that followed was like a breath no one could finish. Ivanka could feel her own heartbeat like a drum. Her polished confidence had cracked, and the crack was spreading. She tried to fill the silence with a smile, but the smile looked brittle, like glass somehow still holding its shape. Obama didn't move, he simply waited. He had learned long ago that silence could reveal truth without requiring a single additional word. 31 seconds dragged past. Each felt like a full minute. Finally, she managed to speak. "I think what I meant earlier is that family gives leaders their purpose. It reminds them who they're fighting for." Her voice trembled on the last word. Obama nodded gently. "Purpose is good, but purpose without responsibility can be dangerous. It makes people believe they're right simply because they mean well." "I don't think that's what's happening here," she replied. "Maybe not, but that's the risk when power and family become the same thing. You start protecting your name more than your nation." That sentence hit with more force than everything before it. No anger, no accusation, just truth delivered so plainly it couldn't be argued with. She tried to smile again. "I think my father's record speaks for itself." Obama nodded. "It does. That's why people are still speaking about it." And then, unexpectedly, Obama softened. "You know, Ivanka, being in that spotlight isn't easy. People expect you to defend the people you love. I understand that. But sometimes loving someone means having the courage to question them." That line wasn't sharp. It was human. It felt less like a strike and more like a hand extended across a divide. And that gentleness made it sting even more, because it wasn't just about her father anymore. It was about her. The moderator tried to intervene, but Obama spoke again. "No. I think this is the topic. Leadership isn't a collection of slogans or buildings or profit margins. It's the reflection of your choices when no one can stop you. And sometimes family makes it hard to see those choices clearly." Then came the longest quiet of the night. 31 seconds. No applause, no laughter, just silence. And inside that silence, something shifted. Obama had turned an argument into a mirror, and Ivanka had no choice but to see her own reflection. At last, she exhaled. "Well," she said softly, "I suppose everyone has their own definition of leadership." Obama smiled gently. "They do, but only one of them stands the test of time." The applause began slowly, then built like rainfall, becoming a downpour. Ivanka arranged a polite smile as the sound washed over her. She didn't argue, because deep down, she knew those 31 seconds had spoken louder than anything she could have said. When the applause faded, Ivanka sat there, composed on the surface, but the composure looked fragile now. Obama hadn't raised his voice once, hadn't insulted her, but somehow, without force, without aggression, he had taken complete control. "I think I've said all I needed to say," she murmured. She adjusted the papers in front of her and stood. "Are you leaving us, Miss Trump?" the moderator asked. "I have another engagement to attend." But everyone knew that wasn't true. The truth was written in the stiffness of her shoulders, in the way her smile stopped before it reached her eyes. Obama didn't stop her. "Thank you for your thoughts, Ivanka," he said, calm and even. She gave a brief nod, then turned and walked off stage. The sound of her heels clicking against the floor was the only thing that moved through the silence. Each step carried the weight of pride, embarrassment, and the quiet understanding that she had been outmatched, not by force, but by grace. She disappeared behind the curtain, and the room exhaled. Obama leaned back. The moderator turned to him. "Well, that was quite an exchange." "Just a conversation," Obama replied. "Though sometimes conversations tell us more than we expect." The audience laughed, genuine, warm, and the tension loosened. But underneath sat something heavier, respect. Obama straightened. "You know, we all say we want truth, but truth has this funny way of making people uncomfortable, especially when it gets too close to home. The hardest thing isn't hearing the truth. It's admitting when it's staring you right in the face. When power is treated like a family heirloom," he said, "it stops serving the people. It starts protecting itself. That's when nations lose their way, and the truth always finds a way to bring them back." The audience clapped, louder this time, not because someone had been humiliated, but because of the truth behind the calmness. Backstage, Ivanka stood before a mirror, touching up her makeup with hands that moved just a fraction too quickly. She had never faced someone who dismantled her without raising his voice. Obama hadn't trapped her with facts. He had simply held up a mirror and made her see what she had spent years learning not to look at. Those 31 seconds kept replaying behind her eyes like a scene from a film she couldn't stop watching. Back on stage, Obama stood, shook hands with the moderator, and thanked the audience. As he walked off, the applause followed. Not the wild kind, but the slow, respectful, lingering kind. The kind that means people aren't just reacting, they're reflecting. Someone backstage congratulated him. He smiled and said simply, "It's not about winning, it's about clarity." Outside, the night air was cool against his face. He was thinking about something he once told a group of young leaders. If you have to raise your voice to make your point, maybe your point isn't strong enough. That night, he had proven it once again. Ivanka's departure had said everything words couldn't. Her silence, her exit, her carefully constructed smile that fooled no one. All of it told the story of what happens when confidence walks into a room and meets conviction, and discovers they are not the same thing. The debate was over, but the echo of it, that single, quiet question, "Barron is your son," would linger far longer than anyone expected. And inside that echo, Obama's calm voice would always remain, reminding everyone who heard it that real power was never about dominance. It was always about dignity.